Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Animal Kingdom. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we have Pamela Johnson and her family meeting most of the entirety of the Codys, because eventually Pope shows up. But obviously, she brings her son Phoenix, which, interestingly, that actor, I want to say the most recent thing I saw him in was Doom Patrol might be the most recent thing I saw that actor in. I've seen him in like a multitude of things, like the show Numbers, so on and so forth. But also, like, he brought, well, not his daughter, but his niece. And so they're there, and just Pamela running things. I even love her, like, oh, get the food, essentially, what was it? She said something along the lines of, like, yeah, in my house, it's like, you kind of don't have to be a dick about it, but maybe just because there was no, like, I was about to say, like, where we are currently with the past, her and Janine weren't on the best terms. I mean, to be fair, it seems like they haven't spoken in years, because later on it's like, nah, we don't eat out that much. Mom would always cook. It's like, really? Back when I knew Janine, she couldn't boil. It sounds like the last time they probably saw each other was when Pamela kicked her out. So that's like someone you haven't seen in all these years, but I guess it's like maybe she owes all her success to Pamela, because it's like, right, maybe there's just more about it that we still don't know. Maybe it has to deal with some of this stuff right now, that maybe the last time they meet is something related to this season, these flashbacks, Maybe it's something still a little further down the road before, Janine started cooking either. But it's still a thing of like, hey, like, why are we all gathered here? What do you want? It's like, well, because initially there's a conversation between Craig, Darren, and Jay about, hey, like, should we really be listening to her? Like, is this like the real, like, because it's like Darren, like, went and met with her himself, and it's like, no, like, it's like, really? You just figured it all out after just talking to her one time? But obviously everything that constantly, no matter what Jay says, is like, oh, Craig's like, oh, now you care about my opinion about something, all the stuff you went and did behind my back. And then Darren's just kind of like, oh yeah, like, you're used to handling stuff on your own, like, we're kind of making this, I made a unilateral decision. Like, why does it matter? You've been making plenty of dough, so I'm doing what's kind of best for us. You can try and, like, say we should leave it to the lawyers, but this is the best way to get back our shit, essentially, so this whole circumstances is just going to lead. The Codys are already, like, a little off edge, considering everything with their mom, still dealing with, like, once again, with just because they didn't, like, always agree with her. The fact is, she was the glue that kind of held things together. Granted, like, you can make the argument her way of handling things always kept the family together, but barely with Scotch tape. And now that she's gone, that Scotch tape is slowly peeling off. So it's not like she did the best job. She just haphazardly, like, stitched this family back together anytime they were kind of falling apart. Any cracks, she just, like I said, used tape, Scotch tape, and it's just slowly peeling off, But it turns out what Pamela wants is them to steal a safe. It turns out in this safe, which, well, Phoenix accidentally killed a dude. The dude who owned a company that he skated for ended up blackmailing, in particular, is blackmailing his mom. And so Phoenix didn't know that this dude still had this, like, dirt on him. It's like a shirt with that dude's blood as well as Phoenix's. So it's like, right. He's like, I didn't even know about this until like 8 months ago. Who knows how long the blackmail's been going on? But it's like, because it's like, really, your mom's powerful enough, can't she get anyone else to do it? It's like, yeah, but she doesn't want anyone outside of that circle to know, because I guess maybe she's still doing some shady business, and, like, maybe her reputation of who she is, it's kind of like Smurf's reputation was everything, so her reputation's enough to kind of flex and keep people, the wolves at bay. But the moment Smurf died, the wolves came knocking at the door for the Codys. So maybe Pamela's trying to avoid the same thing of, like, yeah, if they know it's open season on me and my family, like, I want to keep it tight knit. It's like, doesn't, because, like, her granddaughter's like, I don't trust you guys, but you're motivated, because if you want your stuff back, at the very least, a step towards getting your stuff back, you're going to do this. So, and it seems like Phoenix is the most disconnected from all of this, because he's like, dude, it's like, what does your mom even want, like, our place? It's like, I don't know, man. My mom doesn't even tell me shit. Like, he's kind of been kept, he's like, I guess, the black sheep in his family. I wonder is her like granddaughter, the lawyer in the family, because she was the one that was kind of like, oh yeah, like you guys don't actually have a case. The fact of the matter is you can contest it, whatever. Fact of the matter is you're going to lose in court. So I don't know if she's like the lawyer of the family or she's just well versed in knowing like, oh, this is how it's all going to happen. Once again, smiling faces while they basically just twisted knives in your back just a little deeper. So at first I was kind of feeling like Craig wanted to kind of help out just because it's like, oh, you're a skater. Like I grew up, I had like your deck when I was 8. Sadly, I broke mine like when I broke it when I was like 14. So, but also hearing like, oh man, this dude's like blackmailing and screwing you over. Oh, that's super messed up. So it seemed like Craig was a little already in considering the circumstances. Like, oh, like you're kind of like, I guess it's like, all right, I just met you, but you like, I looked up to you when I was younger. The fact is you're a cool dude. So I want to help you out. It kind of felt like that vibe anyway. So, so there's that element to it. And it was interesting too, because Pamela immediately recognized, oh yeah, because I just thought about it. Because I was like, because she had referenced like, oh, like she hadn't been this place. Oh yeah, the place isn't what it used to look like. At least the last time she saw it. And Craig was like, when was that? And she was like, oh, before you were born, baby. So it's like I said, like she might make another appearance and interaction between her and Smurf will happen later this season that will kind of fill in why Smurf left her everything. Because it doesn't seem like they've had plenty of interactions over the years. Like at some point there was a cutoff because she didn't recognize him. She's like, which one are you? You're Darren. But she immediately he was like, oh, this is my nephew. And it's like, you're Julia's kid. Because I guess because amongst all of them, like Pope and Julia were the ones she was the most familiar with. Because like I remember you got them when they were babies. So I guess when she looks at Jay, she sees Julia. It's like, oh, how is your mom? She's like dead. It's like, oh, obviously that was more recent years. So she's like, I'm sorry about that. Especially because it's like she knew her when she was a little girl, and obviously when she sees Pope, and Pope's like, actually, I do remember you. He's like, even later on saying you smell exactly the same. But it's like, oh, despite the will and everything, your mom was in the right mom, and Pope was like, no, she wasn't. I mean, to be fair, she had a gun pointed at them and it's asking and begging them to kill her. So, granted, no one else knows the circumstances except the 4 of them about what went down with Smurf. But later on, you know, Pamela is talking to, it's like, yeah, I'm sorry what happened. I hear about what happened to Julia. Your mom must have been so brokenhearted, you know, losing a child. And he was like, my mom didn't give a shit about any of us. And that's the thing, like, I mean, to be fair, it's been a while since I saw the beginning of the series, but they're like, she wasn't too broken up about Julia. Hell, wasn't even too broken up about Baz, you know? So it's like, her children were kind of a means to an end. Like, they even reflected a little bit in the past. Like, when she was driving fast, Jake's like, hey, maybe she's kind of scared. It's like, oh, she needs to toughen up. Like, she had that type of mentality where it's like, she kind of had things were kind of rough for her. So it's kind of like, I had to, like, grow up fast. I had to, like, you know, if you're not careful, life is going to take from you. So you need to toughen up. And so, like, her middle finger to the world, she was kind of like raising her kids to have that mentality. And we see like how that led to Julia's situation. We see how Pope turned out. You know, once again, not the greatest mother in the world in certain regards. I mean, I guess you make the argument like Craig and Darren are somewhat well adjusted. I mean, no one in this family is really well adjusted, but Darren and Craig have quotes around them. I mean, they're messed up in their own rights too, but I think Pope and Jay are probably the most messed up in certain regards. There was even that line, I think, from Darren that was basically like, oh, like, if this doesn't go right, we won't get our stuff back, you'll be the one living on the street. I'm like, that's super messed up. Like, none of your great uncles are, like, in the sense of, like, none of these uncles of yours, these awesome, that's what I meant by great, but, like, none of these great uncles of yours are going to let you, like, sleep, like, at their places. Like, considering everything, your family and everything, you're literally the only other family they got. Craig, I'm sure he'd be like, nah, there's only enough room for Ren and the babe. Darren, nah, he's not staying with me because Darren's pissy towards him. Pope, I mean, they're already living together, and Pope doesn't really have anywhere else to live necessarily. So it's like, it's just like Darren saying that. It's like he's throwing so much shade and shit towards Jay just because it's like, yeah, you stole from the family, yada yada yada, like whatever. Fact of the matter is, if you had the opportunity, you would have done the same thing. Especially like y'all once again, your pissy relationships y'all had with Smurf, it's like any one of y'all would have done that exact same thing, especially if you found out all the shady shit Smurf did over the course of this series that it's still unclear whether you really knew about it or not. Like, there's still so much that you're like, I know Pope knows in certain regards, I just don't know if the others knew. You know, so that's where that comes into play. But I think given the opportunity, y'all probably would have done it yourself, but it's just like Jay's the only one that got caught with his hand in the cookie jar in this metaphorical sense. So they're reluctant to, but they ultimately do decide to take the job, especially when Phoenix kind of gives them a lay of the lands of like, all right, they're casing the joint. Now, what was interesting though is like, it's like, especially when Darren's like, whoa, you're working for the guy that's blackmailing your mom. He's like, it's complicated. Essentially, there's a lot of commonality between Phoenix and them, because it's like, he basically is like, yeah, this dude, like, you know, he saw something in me, gave me a place to escape, but also it's kind of like, right, just everything my mom was telling me, I got to do the opposite here. So it's kind of like he has a very like, oh, it's very similar in that regard, kind of middle fingers to like do everything to get away from like doing what your mom wants. So much probably like there was some like issues between Smurf and her kids, probably the same thing with Pamela, because you definitely see a lot of like Smurf with Pamela. Like, it's kind of like the devil you don't know, the devil you do know, Smurf, versus the devil you don't, Pamela. But at the same time, that devil you don't know is looking a lot like the devil you knew. So I'd already brought up that comparison of like, it seems like the way Pamela handles herself, you can definitely see like, oh, she's just kind of a lot like Smurf. Might not give the boys as much slack, because it's like, at least Smurf had the situation of, oh, you're my kids and my grandson, so I'm gonna give you some, cut you some slack. But it's like, I mean, once again, the family dynamics being what they are, is like, oh yeah, like here's the grandbaby, and oh, here's the grandbaby on the Cody side of the family, and it's like, oh, like this isn't my daughter, it's my niece. Oh, this isn't our kid, this is our nephew. It's the parallels being drawn between the Johnson family and the Codys. I mean, considering like how deeply tied these families are together, you know, in relative to the past and everything. So there's all of that. And also, once again, I cannot harp on it enough. Like, it just pisses me off how much shit Jay is getting, because you have Darren being like, oh, so you sold that condo yet? He's like, nope, I put it up. And he's like, yeah, go ahead and sell. He's like, yeah, but it's going to be worth less. It's kind of like, well, at least you'll have some money, even though it's like, I'm going to be losing a lot of money off it. He's like, why don't you like Airbnb your place? I mean, you're sleeping at the bar. And he's just kind of like, yeah, but that place I paid with my own money. What about you? And it's just like, Jay, once again, Jay can't catch a break. Then you got your boy Craig. The fact of the matter is, he finds out that Frankie's in trouble, and I was like, the moment it's like, oh, don't get sucked into this. You already, like, the whole point of you taking this job initially was kind of like you to be like, oh yeah, like, I guess he wanted to prove himself, like, right, you screwed me over last time, Frankie, I'm gonna be one, like, setting the deals and stuff like that, because Jay's the one that reached out to her. But it's like, because even Jay be like, why did you, like, reach out? And, you know, it's like, are you going to be okay? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, because basically things haven't worked out in the past, and so her reputation isn't what it used to be, so she doesn't have, like, the connections that she once had, so she's trying to scrounge up whatever money she can, because I'm assuming, because she was like, yeah, you know, it's like, oh, do you owe that dude some money? She's like, something like that. So she must have either screwed him up on the deal, or a deal that she was setting up for him went sideways, and she's trying to compensate for it. So immediately my brain's like, I hope we don't end up in a situation where Frankie ends up getting killed, and I get the feeling that might be what they're setting up. But then the moment her and Craig are sitting in the car together, I'm like, don't do it, and he kisses her. I was like, oh dude, your baby mama's literally at home with your son, like, come on, dude. I was like, don't do that. Craig. And so obviously, like, Ren's kind of got her own issues, because it's like, right, I gotta get some formula. He's like, you got your boobs right there. She's like, well, I took a bump early. He's like, oh, you can't be doing that. It's just like, essentially, it's like, obviously the good stuff, the natural stuff comes from the natural quote-unquote tap. But I think Craig's just kind of had it up with, like, a lot of her behavior. He feels like she should just kind of settle down, and I don't know. It is kind of like you're asking her, because Ren's kind of always been a little bit of a free spirit, for you to ask her just to stick to just being like a stay-at-home mom. It's like, yeah, I mean, you're helping out in certain regards, but I feel like you're mostly off with your brothers just doing other stuff. I mean, I don't think you're spending as much, like, you're like, I don't think he's fine with being pigeonholed to being like a stay-at-home dad, but it seems like he wants Ren to. I mean, but he did suggest like, oh, you should get into like selling properties and stuff like that. I mean, you're beautiful, you're very good at like selling stuff. He was like, yeah, it's selling like drugs and selling properties are very two different skill sets and stuff like that. But I don't know. And then she says like, oh, I'm gonna go get the formula myself. I'm like, there's probably I don't know. Maybe that's why he slept with her, because there's no baggage. It's just kind of simple. And I guess like simple with Frankie is it's better than like the complications that is Ren. Not just like, oh, like parent, but it's like dealing with her whole thing, like all her baggage. Whereas like Frankie is simple and there is no baggage associated. So maybe that seems a little more appealing. I don't know, man. I was like, not the smart move. That's going to come back and blow up in your face, especially because you're kind of falling back into your, like, that's how Frankie got you last time. And it's like, but I guess he thinks like, no, I'm in control. I'm the one running things. I was like, you're going to get screwed over in some shape or form. I just don't think everything's going to work out the way he hopes and thinks it will. So there's that. There's Pope finding out about Angela. That's brutal. And also, that's actually super depressing, because I was wondering at the beginning, I was like, they kind of completely dropped that Angela thing. We got little winks and nods here, but I'm like, other than it, like last time we saw her in the season finale she was with the boys when they were trying to assert their dominance of like, yo, we're the Codys, our mom might be gone, but we got to put people in their place, let them know we're not going anywhere. But I was like, that's the last time we saw Angela to my recollection, if I'm not mistaken. And then, so to find out she's dead, I was like, oh, she overdosed. It's like, no, she was beaten to death. I was like, Jesus. I was like, I don't know whether it's a situation where like Emily Deschanel like wasn't in a position, like maybe for scheduling issues couldn't like return to the show or whatever reasons. It was like, whoa, that's rough, dude. That's super rough. Like I said, I figured like an overdose would make more sense, because it'd be just kind of it coming back full circle like Julia, especially because like her and Julia were tight, which obviously that led to Jay like resenting her a little bit more too, because it's like, you're kind of the reason why my mom was like fell back into her habits of being the junkie that she was, so which that affects Pope, because now he wants revenge. He's trying to find the dude Shane that's believed to have like killed her, and so he ends up chasing the dude down. And I love like at the end when the dude gets like, he's going down the stairs on a bike, hurts his leg a little bit, he's limping away, and like Pope isn't like running after him, he's kind of like fast walking. I'm like, oh, how very like Jason or Michael Myers of you in that regard. It's like, oh, and Pope looks so sinister, but you also got to give it up to, it's just like Pope's nature of just like that dude being with Shane, being like, yo, isn't that Pope? It's like, you got too much of a recognizable mug, dude. It's like, it's that, oh shit, Pope, run! It's like, it's too much like that. You're too much of a menacing force in that area. But the dude was like, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Who knows if that's the truth. But then like the entire time, like Pope is wailing on him. It's like, why didn't you protect her? Like, why didn't you protect Julia? It's like he's lashing out, because for him, by making sure Angela was okay, failing her felt like failing his sister all over again. It's like with his mom's death, it's bringing up a lot of emotions he had about Julia. It's probably making him think a lot about it. Like, I failed to protect my sister, and my mom didn't do diddly squat to protect her. And so for him, it's like probably protecting Angela. It was like she was kind of like a fill-in for his sister. So it's like if she was okay, it was almost like making up for the fact is that his sister, like it kind of made up for, Julia. But with her being dead, it's like, once again, it's like I failed her again. Like, so he hasn't let anyone else know about that. Just another thing he's keeping to himself. To the point that like Pope is like, I got to get out of here. He ends up telling Darren like, yo, I got to get out of here. I'm slipping in my memories. The fact is I'm blacking out, not remembering how I got somewhere. It's like, someone told me I was looking for Julia. It's just like, I got to get out of here, because for him, it's like everywhere he looks, everything he sees, it just reminds him of Smurf. He's hearing her voice. So he's just frustrated with all of it. And Darren's like, it's okay. Take whatever time you need and just come back when you're ready. And Pope's like, I don't think I can come back. And so Darren's moving in, telling Jay, like, yeah, Pope he's got to go away for a bit. Fact is, it's like, oh, so he's like, yeah, I might rent out my place, like you were, Airbnb it, like you were suggesting. And it's like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to stay here to keep an eye on things. It's like, yeah, like, just cut the shit, Darren. You're here to keep an eye on me because you don't trust me. It's like, I don't see Craig deciding to move in and everything. So I guess it's like, right, at least one of us needs to be here to keep an eye on your shenanigans. So, and just like, once again, it's like, Jay's the only one who really pined for the crown. Like, no one else really was. Like, I mean, Darren and Craig did their things of like, oh, let's kind of go out on our own. It didn't always, like, work out for them necessarily. But it's like, Jay's the only one who really went aiming for the crown. I'm the one that studied the most on the Smurf. She basically trained me to be her little protege. But it's like, now that she's gone, like, she would have been at least there to kind of back Jay's play for the crown. I mean, everyone else is like, nah, son, we've been putting in time long before you came into the picture, so this is ours. You don't get to make unilateral decision. You're the child. You're the baby in this situation. We're the adults. And it's like, I'm sure for Jay, it's like, I've done more for this family than you'll ever know, you'll ever realize, like what I've sacrificed, what I've done for this family. So it's like, yeah, you guys have brought plenty of screw-ups to this family. To be fair, Jay's kind of brought a lot of screw-ups to this family as well. Like, no one's above reproach when it comes to this. But I think it's just bubbling beneath the surface. Like, Darren's resentment, as well as everyone else's resentment for Jay, but Jay's resentment, like, back at them. So I'm curious if there's going to be any conversations, like, more one-on-ones between him and Pamela about, like, so my mom, it's like, you knew my mom before, like, all of this, like, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to... It won't make up for the past. It won't make up for her being gone, but I'm curious, will that heal any wounds that he has? I mean, I'm curious to see what Pope's going to do. Like, is he going to go, like, get baptized like he was kind of wondering about at the beginning of the episode? Like, is he going to try and get himself, like, straight in what way? Like, is he actually going to go to that doctor, talk to a therapist? Like, what is he going to actually do? Because being off on his own, I don't think is going to be the answer. But to be fair, it's also the thing of, you know, being in that house, the doctor had told him, like, you need to be away from any triggers or any constant reminders of all of that. So, more reason to leave, considering everything. So, it's up to this trio to handle the job, and we'll have to wait and see if that kind of works out for them. In the past, you have Janine doing her thing of manipulating a cop. It's like, yeah, your mom's sick. Oh, your wife, Bill, just like, you're working double just to cover for your mom being sick, which I'm like, oh, like, not perfect timing, interesting timing, because it's like, right, sick mom, you know, and it's just like, oh, here you are trying to take advantage of a cop, because it's like, right, this way he'll work for us, and like, I'll help you out, but you just help me out in the future. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But, you know, and also, like, even Jake trying to be the moral high ground in this, being like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be teaching your kid this criminal stuff. She's like, they're fine. Like, they might as well learn it. It's the family business, which, once again, it makes looking back at this, like, seeing these events even sadder, because you just see, like, how it eventually leads to, like, Julia wanting nothing to do with this family and her just kind of on her own, and just what that turned into, and just, like, just the fact is that Jake's just kind of looking like, well, what are we even doing? Like, you and me, what are we doing here? And he's like, I don't know. Maybe you should ask your wife. She's like, if you want me to, like, you can always go home. Like, you don't have to stay here. Just Jake just kind of, it sucks all around. It's just like, it sucks in the sense that it just kind of breaks your heart. It's just like, it's one of those things, because it's like, Smurf isn't alive anymore to try and... I mean, it was already too late to try and make things right. Maybe in her own mind, taking in Jay was her way to kind of compensate for the past, but, like, she can't make any of that right. She can't, like, apologize for it. It's like, they'll never get, like, the whole, like, right, I'm sorry I wasn't the best mother. Like, and would Smurf have ever apologized like that? I don't know. But I just feel bad, because I feel like she'll never have the opportunity to try and make some of that right, you know? So we'll see where all this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.